So stage one is the United States hit them. There's no
and
guarantee.
Some trigger of dispersal possible. And then over the months, your intel, you have no more IAEA, which was your best intelligence. So people think, oh, it must be the CIA and Mossad who are the best. Well, they can turn individuals, James Bond style. But there's nothing like going into, just like you're asking me to come here, there's nothing like being on site and actually looking right across. And if I'm the IAEA, I want to actually measure you as the enriched uranium and actually get my measurements out. There's nothing that's going to beat that. You see what I mean? So once you bombed, you were number one, tactically successful, but you're strategically, at a minimum, uncertain, likely failed, and it's dispersing. And then number three, your intel is terrible, terrible. So that's going to put you in a situation of, over time, panic, because you will get little drops and drips and drabs of additional intel of this and that happening with that material. And we will just simply panic. I mean, we won't say we're panicking because we want to exude control, but we're losing control here. And that's what then sucks, that I always said would lead to stage two, which was the regime change war. Now,
so I'm asking questions just to make it very extra simple. Your explanations are brilliant, but I always like to clarify things for our audience even more so.
Constantine, it's perfect.
Okay, so what you're saying is stage one, they have nuclear facilities and material. You try and take them out, but it was unlikely to fully work. It clearly didn't work. So stage two is you go, and we know this from some of the things that are being revealed about the negotiations that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff had with the Iranians. The Iranians claim to have the ability to make
11.
11.
They
16,
said, right, they're talking smack across the table.
Right.
This is what the Iranians
and they're
are
saying
smack.
we've got the nuclear material to make a bunch of bombs.
Yep.
And your argument is, well, that's when everybody basically panics. And so
I'm saying they were incrementally panicking along the way, because that material in June was enough for between 10 and 16 bombs.
Right.
So, and that is with high degree of confidence. That's the IAEA's estimate. We know that the time to make those bombs and so forth, it's not a few days. It's more like finishing the enrichment is a few weeks. That's when President Trump's talking about the few weeks. But then it's probably 6 months after that to actually fashion the bomb. So we have some idea of this, of the actual dimensions. And so I'm not saying that it's literally the foreign minister of Iran's comment here.
But the package of information we're getting from intel, from the negotiations, altogether, that creates a picture.
It creates a panicky picture because it's Swiss cheese. Some pieces are hard like this. A lot of it is empty like that.
Right.
And the problem, and you are concerned because there's so much of that material now. You see, this isn't just tiny amounts. It's not the 300 kilograms of 5% that was there with the Obama deal. Now we have fantastic amounts more. And so even portions of that can be really, really concerning. And it doesn't even have to be for a nuclear bomb. So you're now seeing the precision drone capabilities of Iran, which I have to say I'm a bit surprised was not taken more seriously ahead of time, because Iran produced 55,000 of those precision drones in 2025 and gave them to Russia. So the idea that you're not now, I don't know if we have any idea how many thousand they have. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the idea that you wouldn't think they would have a lot of thousands here for themselves, and they've just given everything to Russia. I think this is kind of foolish. So,
okay.
but put the radiological material on the tip of a drone.
Yes.
Now that's going into Doha. That's going into Dubai. Now take some of that material and hand it off to Houthis, Hezbollah. Now you have the possibility of radiological bombs in Tel Aviv. These are radiological. They're not the same as a nuclear, but this will probably, if these things happen, you're going to see evacuations like you have not seen. You think it's been, people have panicked now? This is probably one of the things it's very concerning, as what I'm saying as this intel spreads. And I've been saying this too in the assessment for 20 years, that these are the ways that this is the politics of the situation, not just the mechanics of so my work is looking at the mechanics of things as it intersects with politics. And the politics is what's left out here in these discussions of escalation dynamics, and was when I taught for the Air Force as well. Again, pilots in the Air Force, best in the world, putting bombs on target. They're told, I want political end state victory. How do you get there? You got to go through politics. And the politics is what I'm laying out in the escalation trap, stage by stage. And so I'm discussing the interaction.
Understood. Yeah. Understood. So stage 2 is you didn't get all the nuclear material.
You go back for regime change.
And why can't you just keep bombing or try and use intel?
I said you'll do the negotiate. Well, how are you going to get a grip on that material, the nuclear material that is now, you're worried is going to have some nefarious purpose? And I've given you a number of them. You only have 2 choices. One, the Iranian regime will negotiate it away. That's what happened with the Obama deal. But once we went through and I always argued for something, I didn't know it was the Obama deal, but I was arguing that would be the best thing we could do, even before we had a thing called the Obama deal. And there's a whole story about the kind of linkages there that when I was on Obama's primary team, I was recommending for that. So if you're interested in that, but I mean, the point is that the reason you go for regime change, Constantine, is because you're desperate. And you think, well, okay, the negotiations aren't giving me a big enough deal. They still want to keep their 3.5 enriched uranium. They're not giving the whole thing up like they did for Obama. So what are you left with? You're left with trying to take out the regime. And it's not because it's a great option. It's not. History will show it's not. But the fact of the matter is you're getting more and more desperate here. And I think that's really what led to stage 2. And that's what I said. This is how you will get the regime change war by the United States. It will be an air war, and it will also fail. It will fail because in 100 years, air power alone has never toppled a regime. I always went through the modeling of the regime itself. I do this on my Substack, glad to do it here. There is nothing special about this regime that makes it more likely to collapse with air. In fact, it's the other way around, and I'm glad to explain all that. But the fact of the matter is you're going down this road, and then the trigger, when would you push the go for regime change? Well, in history, this was in 2003 as well, and other cases, America typically goes the hour it has eyeball sighting of the leader it wants to kill. Not general idea, okay, not vague idea, but often eyeballs on the target. And then there's a gap because you have eyeballs on the target, maybe a sat phone here. Well, it takes about 6 or 8 hours to get those bombers there, F-117s, B-2s, whatever. It's going to take a little bit of time to get there, no matter how fast you think you can make that happen. In 2003, this is when CIA Director Tenet ran into the Oval Office with George Bush, somewhere around the 20th or 22nd of March, 2003. And he writes this in his book, so there's nothing classified here. This has all been made public. And he says to President Bush, we've got Saddam in our sights. He's at Tarnak Farms. He's right there. We've got our human agent in the basement, and Saddam is going to have dinner there tonight again. He was there last night for dinner. He's coming again for dinner. And we have our agent there with a satellite phone, and he is telling us this is happening. So that's when George Bush, March 2003, orders the F-117s to go. And it takes about, but they timed it right for the dinner. And also, just so you know, we didn't tell the human agent, so that we left the human agent in the basement, and we bombed the farm, destroyed that, killed the agent as well. And it just so turned out that Saddam just decided not to go there. Not for any, it's just the randomness of history, of luck here. So that's why we didn't kill him at that time. But this is, and I said, the most likely reason you would, what would trigger the regime change in a very tactical sense is you'd have some, probably human, eyeballs on the leader that you want to kill. And I didn't know it would be the supreme leader, but that makes perfect sense under this. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but that's what I can see the tactical reasons for this. And I think that's what happened. I think what you had is you had this pressure here of essentially fear of what was happening with Iran's dispersing nuclear material and what could happen with that over time, mixed with this very exquisite intelligence about this day, this hour, this leader, this group is right there. And it's not one or the other, it's all of those coming together. And I'm fusing it here for your listeners because I can understand why they're confused. They're getting sound bites of 6 seconds here, 6 seconds there. This is why I wanted to talk to you, to give a fuller picture of why.
Yeah. So we are now in the regime change war.
Yep.
What's next?
Well, the regime change war is failing, and it's failing strategically, not tactically. Just want to be super clear. Again, our smart bombs are hitting their targets 90+% of the time. Our military is hyper professional at making those bombs hit those targets. The military is not failing here. The strategy is failing. That we have to be super clear. And why is the strategy failing? It's because at this stage, stage 2, the goals are number 1, topple the regime, meaning positive regime change, where this regime goes away and a new leaders come in who are more amenable to what President Trump wants. That's what I mean by positive regime change. Well, that's not happening. And it's not happening because what you're seeing is the pattern of history over 100 years. This has never happened, just to be super clear. Not rarely, it's never happened. And that's what my books show and so forth. But why not? It's because when you kill the leaders, as we did here, and as we've done before, as we kill the leaders, the replacement leaders, all the incentives are for the replacement leaders to come in more aggressive than before. Some of it's age, just because they're younger. It's like my graduate students are more aggressive than I am. Okay, that's all true. Okay. But some of it is just plain organizational. So just imagine that when you have a situation where there's a 2-actor game, the society versus the regime, society versus the regime. Now you bring in this 3rd outside actor, the foreign military power that's a Godzilla. This isn't some little pipsqueak. We're the Americans. We're the powerful American military. And on top of that, in 1953, a long time ago, but still historically will be remembered, it was the United States that toppled a democratic leader with the CIA controlling pieces of the Iranian military. It was a military coup that we orchestrated. So didn't use air power, literally made the military do it. Well, that's when we put in the Shah, a dictator, not democratic, and the Savak. The Savak was the secret police, and the secret police were right up there with Joe Stalin's secret police. So this is not a nice situation. So this is what this gorilla, this Godzilla is over here. This changes the politics here. And it changes the politics because suddenly whatever the tensions were here, the gap, which is real, just like, 40% of America supports Donald Trump today. There's a gap between America and our government. Well, does that mean that if Iran assassinates Trump, and we know they're trying, that you're going to get the Democrats here in Times Square? They're going to come out. They're going to have a party in Times Square, and they're going to invite the Iranians to come on over for the party. That's not going to happen, you see. Same dynamics here. So the government, you can see the leaders who are taking over now, much more likely to be hawkish because of the issue here with the
we have to fight Godzilla.
You got to fight Godzilla, and the Godzilla is going to eat us here if we either fight him now or fight him later, but we got to fight Godzilla.